Fear Street Part 3 is here. 1666. That's 3 sixes. That's an evil number.
I messed that up. What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. We have reached the end of the Fear Street trilogy, and it's only been a few weeks. I need you guys down below letting me know which movie out of the three was your favorite, and we're going to talk about it right now. And the origins of Seraphir's curse are finally revealed as history comes full circle on a night that changes the lives of Shadyside forever. And this is where everything starts to go down. It hits the fan, and this is a distinctly different entry than the prior two films because for around half of the movie itself, we are in a vastly different time period, 1666, and because of that, we're looking at this thinking, oh, well, it's kind of going to be like The Witch, right? And while in its own way, it's kind of like The Witch, it's vastly different at the same time because we are thrown into the landscape of this town, giving us small glimpses into the lives of these individuals, but we're also dealing with a few things on the side, whether it be local politics or just emotions that come from the beliefs of the town's people, specifically focusing on our main relationship here that is looked at by everyone who begins to figure this out as, well, what you expect from people in 1666, witchcraft. And from there on out, we have a story that you could probably predict. I mean, we obviously know where it leads, right? And we know these are the origins that we've been getting glimpses of in the other movies, but the way that it plays out specifically, you could predict how it's going to go, but I did love the way that they executed a lot of these things in the first half, whether it be using the cast members that we know and love, or just portraying a lot of these horrifying things in a way that ties it together with the other movies in the franchise. So if you're watching 1666 and you haven't watched the other two parts, you're probably going to be like, well, for a fact, you're just going to be confused. And I don't blame you. But what works so well about this franchise is that once you put them all together as a whole, they flow in a way that feels concrete, at times a bit prolonged, and a lot of complaints have come when it comes to just the cheesy nature of certain characters' decisions, especially in that first film. And I will fully admit the second film at this point is more well-received than the first, but I would actually argue that the first film ties into this movie a lot better, not only because we return to that time period, but also because it almost makes it feel like the second movie could have been told in flashback form. Now, I'm glad we got the second movie because we got a lot of really good scares and kills from that, but there are so many things that tie into 1994, and the second half of the movie goes away from 1666 entirely. We go back to 1994. We resolve this problem. So if you're expecting this to not tie in all of these loose threads and not give us the payoff that we rightfully deserve from this, there is definitely a payoff here. Now, the transition between the two time periods, really tying that story in a bow. I mean, it was terrifying, tragic, and extremely emotional because of what happens, but it was a bow nonetheless. But tying that into 1994, that's a difficult task. And the transition there, almost right down the middle, may be a bit too jarring for some. And about 10 minutes into the second half of this story, I was like, man, I really kind of missed the vibes that we were getting from 1666, even though the exploration of that time period, while the focus was on our couple, I did need just a bit more from the townspeople around them, and I would have liked to have understood the mindset a bit deeper as opposed to just the surface level, bad. But I get it, and Seraphir was a character that I was expecting a lot from, and I got pretty much everything that I expected. I was engaged in the relationship, I really enjoyed what she gave us, and I was happy we got what we got, and there's a revelation of sorts in there that carries over into the final few scenes that I think a lot of people aren't going to expect. As predictable as this trilogy has been, they're not going to expect that, and that worked extremely well. And then the culmination of everything, it's like the Avengers Endgame of the Fear Street trilogy, where everyone comes together and it's this giant battle, and that was epic in a sense. They really scaled down on the horror. They kind of kept that to the first half, but we got some fun nonetheless. And, we also got our fair share of cheese, the lines of dialogue that you just can't help but laugh at. Like someone looking at the camera and saying, just because we're different doesn't mean they can keep killing us. And everybody looks at each other and they're like, for Shadyside. And it was cheesy. But at the same time, I'm sitting there going, for Shady Side. If I wanted to get nitpicky, I could say, yes, some of the actors didn't quite nail the accents in 1666, but that aspect of the story was just so authentic for me, I did not mind it as much. And the word terrifying, I mean, I don't throw that word around very often, but it was terrifying at times, not only visually, but certain things that happen. It is just this haunting first hour. And in the second hour, even though we do kind of jump into that, it holds, I believe, the conclusion that a lot of fans are going to be looking for from this franchise. Cheese and all, it's there, but that's part of what makes it special for me. And before I give you guys my score, let me know what you're watching on Netflix this weekend. And if you'd like to see more reviews from me and you want to support this channel, be sure to drop your thumbs up down below. The final entry in this trilogy brings home the story in a satisfying way, and there are more than a few terrifying moments. I'm going a 70% for Fear Street Part 3. The final part, or is it? When you're watching this movie and you're watching through the credits, do not turn it off until you go from the fancy credits to the non-fancy credits, because there's one moment, you never know what's going to happen. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. The next video on my channel should be Space Jam: A New Legacy. All right, I'll see you soon.